Every time we do a Stevie Ray Vaughan style video, we keep seeing a reoccurring theme in the comments.
Chris, stop playing those put-the strings, man. Maybe your tone wouldn't be so thin if you use 13s like a real man. Why don't you stop being a bitch and actually use some 13s?
So today, we have accepted your challenge and we are using gauge 13 strings. So hopefully once and for all, we can dispel the myth as to whether or not you need heavy gauge strings to sound anything like Stevie Ray Vaughan. First of all, let's try and actually get the gauge 13 strings on this classic vibe Strat. I'm really hoping that we don't need to modify the guitar at all to actually get these strings to work. Here is the 9 gauge strings. Look how skinny and small they are. Okay, so the strings have been restrung. Pretty high action. I didn't have to actually change anything, which is good news. But yeah, look at how thick those strings are. The scariest part about this whole thing was the fact that the G string is like a different material than a normal set of strings. It's the same as the E, A and D string. So it's, listen to that, it's not even, it hasn't got the twang of a normal G string. That E string is crazy. Sheesh. Let's do a quick test bend. Okay, it's just about manageable, but I can see why this used to tear up Stevie's fingers. So before we actually changed strings, I recorded a little sample of the 9s. So let's do a quick side-by-side comparison and let's see if we can hear any of the differences that people keep claiming we will. So let's go. Okay, so the first thing to note is that it was very hard to play the 13s. You can probably tell in the playing, there's not as much, like it's just that G string. Honestly, I caught it early. It's so hard to actually get the same expressiveness as you would with a lighter gauge of strings. Now, I've not listened back to the recordings yet, but when I was playing in the room, on the 9s, I could hear a more like zinginess. It had like that real It now makes sense why you would need these heavier strings for certain Stevie Ray Vaughan songs. You can dig in so hard and there's no flex in the string. So if you do that on 9s, they're going to be flapping about all over the place. So, and there's also a time where you can really hammer that low E string. But I reckon my overall conclusion is that the strings sound a bit dead when they're massively thick like this. Because maybe I'm missing a bit of that zinginess from the thinner strings, but it's interesting. You almost want something in between. That's the conclusion I'd make. I wouldn't want 9s, but I wouldn't want 13s. I think 11s are probably a good compromise. Maybe 10s, but listen to that, it's just a bit, it's like there's a blanket over the sound. That's not what a G string should sound like. Now just look at that material of the G string. It's not the same metallic style of string that you'd get on the traditional set of G, B and E strings. So it just sounds dead. I'd certainly love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Let us know if you would prefer to hear the sound of the 9s or the 13s. And is the playability issue of the 13s worth that extra potential bit of tone, if there is any at all? Apart from a few instances where you get that extra massively fat sound, I wouldn't say it's necessarily that much of a difference to warrant the pain you go through by tearing up your fingers And that's only after a few minutes. If Stevie was doing this night after night, playing for 2 hours a night and then on tour for months on end, I really don't think it's worth it. And that's what Rene Martinez said to Stevie. He was like, let's go down to 11s and you'll still get the fatness of the thicker strings, but you're not going to tear up your fingers, because obviously we've all heard the crazy stories of Stevie super gluing his fingers and putting it on somewhere else on his body and ripping it off so that the skin would remain on the super glue, and he then had a thicker layer on his fingers. It's just insanity. And I think I even heard Rene Martinez saying that Stevie ran out of his own skin at one point, so he had to start using Rene's skin, which is bizarre. It's like, ugh. So yeah, it's really not worth that much pain. So I'm going to play you guys out now with these massively fat strings, and I'm going to pair it with our Texan Twang, because the zinginess of that counteracts the fatness of these strings, and it's a really nice symbiotic relationship. So yeah, check out the Texan Twang if you're interested in the sound that you hear in a second. By the way, this SRV style Strat is available exclusively at Andertons, and I think they've got a handful left. So definitely check out this classic vibe FSR Squier, because it's an incredible guitar, especially for £419. It's insane. I think if we can all agree one thing, it's that Stevie was an absolute beast. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll catch you in a bit, and cheers.